Hello and welcome to the Busy Bride podcast. I'm your host, Gabriella Marie, and I created this podcast to help you research vendors and learn valuable advice as you plan the most special and true to you wedding day of your dreams. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, Keira. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So just to start out, a couple random fun fact questions and just general questions. What's your business name? Where are you based? What do you do? Fun fact.
Yeah, cool. So business name is Silk and Honey Events. We're in the Poconos right now. I'm actually moving to Lehigh Valley in the spring. So we'll still service all the same areas, but I'm personally just moving about a half hour south, a little closer to Philly. And what do I do? That was the third question, right? So we are a wedding planning and coordination company. I have a team of about 4 girls. Like I said, we're located in the Poconos, but we service like the Hazleton State College, Bloomsburg area, Philly, Scranton area for sure. And then we do some in New Jersey as well. So willing to travel a bit. And yes, we do planning and coordination services. We do about 25 weddings a year. And everything from, full service wedding weekend rehearsal to brunch down to just wedding management starting 6 weeks out. So I'm sure we'll delve a little more, but that's a good high level of what we do.
That's awesome. And what's a fun fact about either you or your business?
Oh gosh. This is always my icebreaker one. When you're in the college and they ask for like an icebreaker. So mine is that I'm actually a black belt in karate. So I think it's a cool little
yeah. What?
Yep. So don't mess with me on wedding days because
that is incredible. And that is exactly what you want your wedding planners.
Yeah.
That's just the perfect fun fact.
My back pocket. So yeah.
That's awesome. So cool. Okay. So wedding planning, wedding coordination. What made you want to get into that? Like, how did you start your business?
Yeah, so I come from the like hotel and corporate world. I've always been doing event planning ever since I graduated college, and I always wanted to be a wedding planner, or what you see in the movies. A wedding planner is like with her little check whatever clipboard, whatever that is, her board, and she's walking around and telling people what to do, right? So I started in the corporate world in the hotels, and again, I mainly did corporate events, but I had to dabble in weddings a bit, and it was really fun to do it like from the venue side. And then I planned my own wedding. I know a lot of people, they say it that way too, but I planned my own wedding. And so, coupling the experience I had planning my wedding with my event background, right as actually during COVID, I was like, I'm gonna do this. Like, I'm gonna do this. So I did it. I literally had an LLC and a website in a day. Like I woke up at 9 a.m., decided I wanted a business, and by 4, I had my LLC like applied for, and I had a website, and I was like up and running. So I just kind of decided that I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to, make my own hours, work with the people that I wanted to work with, and not, kind of be told what to do and who to do it with. So yeah, that's like a pretty good overview of how I started.
That's awesome. I can't believe you had everything ready in a day. That is so impressive.
Yeah, thanks. I'm very type A and very much like if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna like put all of my focus and energy into it and do it. So like my husband's like trying to talk. I'm like, can't talk, starting a business, like talk to you at dinner time.
So that's amazing. And it works well with the role you are in too. Like your personality works perfectly. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, so what exactly do you do as a wedding planner, coordinator, or I guess what services do you offer? Because I know some brides going in are like, oh, like it seems like an extra expense. I feel like I can plan my wedding. It can't be that hard. Yeah. What do you do? Why do you exist? Why do you help brides?
Absolutely. So I feel like there's kind of 2 separate avenues here. The first one is people who need help starting with planning. So there's planning and there's coordination. So with planning, that's really if you need someone to kind of hold your hand through the process. A lot of brides come to me and they're like, I've never planned a wedding before. I don't actually know what I need to do. And of course you haven't. And of course you don't, because why would you? You've never done it before. Hopefully you don't do it again, right? We're trying to do this one time. So with planning, we really hold your hand from start to finish. So whether that's I have a 6 month engagement, wedding that I'm working on right now, or 2 years, we're going to be there for you every step of the way. So that's at least monthly calls, that's unlimited emails, that's helping you procure all of your vendors, including venue if you need. We're going to get your photographer, hopefully it's you. We're going to get your your entertainment, your DJ, your band, your caterer, your bar, all of that for you. Then we're going to dive into design. So florals, rentals, what do the chairs look like? What do your napkins and your tablecloths look like? And how do they match with the signage and all of that kind of pretty fun phase. And then the next phase after that is going to be more like logistics, more day of timeline, making sure vendors have everything that they need to succeed that day, right? Because I'm only as good as the vendors that you hire and how they perform on the day. So I want to make sure they're equipped with everything they need to do the best job possible, because then everyone's happy. So just making sure vendors have everything, logistics, we're good on timing, startup, yeah, setting up, tear down, all that kind of fun stuff. So planning start to finish. It's called Aisle Planner. It's like an amazing dashboard that has a budget tool so we can make sure you're staying on budget. It tracks our payments, where we are to budget, how much something costs versus what we thought it would cost. It has a checklist. So you could almost kind of get Aisle Planner, this dashboard. It has this checklist and you almost don't even need me because it has everything that we should be working on. Like, a year out, what should we have done? 9 months out, what should we have done? So another amazing tool. It has a guest tool. So we're going to put all of your guests into this tool and use it to make your floor plan, your seating chart, all that kind of fun stuff. It's very visual. We have design guides to put in your inspiration pictures, your final pictures for like your florals, your tablescapes, all that kind of fun stuff. So I have a ton of like reference docs and dashboards and stuff like that we use as well to keep everyone on track. So that's planning. Coordination is going to be more for those people who maybe they have a little more time or they have a little more knowledge or they're a little more type A and they want to do the planning or they have more help, whatever the reason is that you want to be involved in the planning more. Amazing. Love it. But you need someone and you recognize the value of having someone there on the day of to, I call it, host your wedding for you, right? Like clearly you're actually hosting it or, your parents or whoever is helping with that. But we are going to be the one that's greeting your guests and making sure the day runs smoothly so that you can actually enjoy this wedding that you just spent the last year and a half and tens of thousands of dollars on. So no matter what you go with, obviously if you go with planning, you're also getting the coordination as well. But so coordination is more for people who, like I said, they want to do the planning themselves and just have someone kind of come in a little last minute. 6 weeks out is when we start, to just help finalize all the final details, tie up your loose ends, reach out to your vendors, introduce ourselves, create that timeline, and then come in on the day of and just rock it for you so that you can, like I said, just enjoy, always have a drink in your hand, don't have to worry about anything, and just get married. So, yeah.
That is amazing and very clear, like explanations of what the two different things are, because I think some people get a little confused. Yep. That aisle planner thing sounds amazing.
It's awesome. It's the best thing I ever. It's an investment on my part, to use it and to build it out the way that works best for me and my clients. But the feedback I get on it from my couples is just that it's invaluable and it's really, like I said, just like a dashboard and like a hub for you to at any point. So when you go for the holidays and your family's like, "Hey, what's going on with the wedding?" You could literally pull up your aisle planner and be like, "This is what's going on. Like, here's everything we have to do coming up. Here's how much it's costing. Here's what guests have RSVP'd who we're waiting on." You can harass Aunt Sally at Thanksgiving to RSVP because you can tell her that she hasn't by now. So yeah, it's an amazing resource and I'm really lucky and happy to have it.
Yeah, that is incredible and just definitely a big asset when it comes to planning weddings because there's so many moving parts, so much to think about that you probably don't realize going in. So yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So again, like I mentioned before, people aren't really aware of the different specific things that planners and coordinators do. What is something specific that your brides or that many brides just aren't aware of?
Yeah, so this one's kind of a hard one because I feel like every bride it's something different. Like like I'll go through my package with all of them and everyone will pick out something different that they didn't know that we did, which is actually kind of cool if you think about it. Like that means pretty much everything we do, you're like, "Oh, I didn't realize I could outsource that," right? I didn't realize someone else would do that. There's one thing that I do, especially with planning, that people don't realize that we can help with a lot, and that's hotel blocks. So I talk about it in our first call is where are your guests going to be staying? How many people are coming from out of town? What does that look like? And all people are like, oh, what, okay, what does it matter? Like who cares? But it matters. It's a little thing that can go a long way, and it doesn't impact like you financially at all. So we get what we call our courtesy blocks, hotel blocks, and there's no financial, burden on the couple if the rooms don't pick up, but it's just a nice little touch to have so that when your guests go to your wedding website to look, see what's going on, they're so excited to come for the weekend. And oh, how nice, they already put together a wedding block for me, and it's cheaper than if I were to go on to this this hotel online and do it myself, and all my friends will stay here and we're all going to be in one place making an after party. So to me, that's like one big thing. And I have a partnership affiliation with a company, and so I can get hotel block rates and options over to my couples pretty efficiently and in a nice like spreadsheet. It's not just all thrown together. So I think we do a pretty good job with that. And again, something else that people maybe don't think of, or other planners outsource, or just say, sorry, we can't help with that. You need to reach out to hotels individually or whatever. On the day of, in terms of coordination, again, this one's like really hard, and I think the feedback we get, like I'm thinking of like reviews we've gotten, is just that we are just on top of it and proactive. And I said before, always have a drink in your hand, but our number one priority is making sure you are comfortable and have everything you need. So we're always just being proactive and making sure that, like I said, you have a drink in your hand. You've eaten dinner, you've eaten lunch. Like, did you eat when you were getting ready? We're just kind of that person for you. And if something's going wrong, I can't even tell you how many like in the closet conversations I've had with like brides, like breaking down before, like, I'm so nervous, or, this or that. So kind of being your therapist if you need, in a sense as well. So just being like that person that for sure has your back and like your best interest in mind on your wedding day, which I think is just so important and like valuable to have someone, because everyone's running around and in charge of different things, even like your parents or bridal party, like they're all worried about other stuff. And so just having one person that you can just say whatever you need to, just ask for things, just has your back, to me is just like super important and something that I pride ourselves on doing.
Yeah, totally. I fully agree with that, because everybody else at your wedding is having their own experience at your wedding. Like
Yeah.
it is your wedding, but like they're being your bridesmaids. So they get to experience being a bridesmaid, and your parents are their parents of the people getting married. Like
Yeah.
everybody has their own experience. So it's nice to have a third party where you can just like have that as the wedding person that you can just talk to and hand things over to.
Exactly. Yep. We'll pretty much
So
do whatever you want. Like,
yeah.
I almost never, I don't want to like say it's not crazy, but pretty much if you ask us, hey, we need this done, if it's within reason and I'm not gonna like have to get up on a 10-foot ladder to do it or something crazy, then we'll do it for you. We just want to make sure your day goes how you want it to go and how you've always dreamed that it would go. So yeah.
Amazing. So you take away a ton of responsibility that the bride would have on her wedding day. What are like a job or two, things that you do that maybe the parents or bridesmaids or wedding party would be doing if there were no coordinator or planner?
Absolutely. I can't, there's way more than one or two. So this might
yeah.
be a long one, but so I'll give you just pretty much like the overview of what my day looks like, if that's helpful
Go
as a
for it.
coordinator. So we're going to arrive. I'm going to check in with the bride right away. It's the first thing I do. Prior to that day, we've already sent the timeline out to all your vendors. It has my cell phone number on it. So when your DJ gets there that day and he's never been there before and he doesn't know where to park and he doesn't know where to load in, he's going to call me instead of calling your maid of honor or your mom or your sister to ask where they're going and bother. They don't even have their numbers. They only have mine. So they're only bothering me. So as vendors are arriving, they're checking in with me again instead of somebody else, making sure they have their setup, their tables, all their stuff that they need. We're going to do I call it light decor setup. So I'm going to put out your menus, your place cards, your welcome sign, your favors, if you have centerpieces that came already together, they need to be put on the tables with candles. We're putting all that out for you. Again, something that maybe you would have had to do that morning, the day before, your bridal party would have had to do. We're going to handle all that for you. So making sure everything is set up as it needs to be before guests get there. Another big thing too is transportation. So that just seems to be like a big thing that people need to be coordinating on the day of, no matter how much work you do ahead of time, no matter how many times I've called the driver or the company in the weeks leading up to it. The morning of, I always call all the drivers, give them my cell phone number, and someone's always calling me at some point. Hey, we don't know where the hotel is. Where do we drop off? All that. So 20 minutes before ceremony, when the bus doesn't know where to go, he's calling me and not you guys, where your phone's probably not even on you. Like you can't even answer that call at that point. So dealing with transportation, we're greeting your guests as they arrive, directing them to pre-ceremony drinks, whatever's happening before ceremony, or just asking them to sit down, making sure people are sitting down before we start ceremony. There's just so many little things that can start happening when you don't have a professional there. We're going to coordinate with your ceremony music, whoever's providing that music, to make sure that you guys are lined up, and we're going to cue when you guys are going to go down. We're going to line you up. We're going to tell you when to walk. So you're going to do rehearsal the day before, and you're going to do it. And then you're all going to stare at us like deer in headlights when you line up. And I'll tell you when to walk. I'll tell you exactly when to walk, how slow, where to hold your hands, all that kind of fun stuff. So we're going to get you down the aisle. We're going to get you married. We're going to direct your guests to cocktail hour, make sure cocktail hour is all set up, everything you need, lawn games, anything like that's happening. And then we're going to do the same for reception, direct your guests into reception, line you up for reception, coordinate with your DJ or entertainment, photographer, make sure everyone's ready for intros, first dances, speeches, no one's in the bathroom. How many times have you had someone, hey, father of the bride, okay, 1 second, he's in the bathroom. Like, yes, exactly. So making sure none of that happens. We're working with your caterer, whether it's buffet or plated. If it's buffet, we're happy to call tables so that you don't have a huge line. Plated, just making sure, again, just making sure the courses are coming out how they should. If we have dances and speeches in between, just coordinating all of that. And then cake cutting, all that kind of stuff at the end of the night. If we need to pack up some of your belongings before we go, we're happy to do that as well. So I call it, we're like maitre d' your day or hosting the day, right? Just making sure that, the next event that's supposed to happen, we're always ready for the next event. So, if it's ceremony and ceremony's happening, we're not even thinking about ceremony anymore. We're on the cocktail hour and the start of reception, just anticipating what's happening next and making sure that everything is set up for it, and all the people involved have all the tools they need to, exceed and do it flawlessly for you.
Amazing. Love that. There are so many little details in there. Truly just making sure the guests are sitting down before the ceremony starts. Making sure people are there for their speeches. Yeah. Super small details you never ever think about. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what is a frequently asked question that you get from couples looking to hire a planner or coordinator, and also the answer?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest ones is, what's the difference between you and the coordinator that our venue has? So, and it's a totally fair and valid question. And I want people to ask that, because there's a big difference between it, and I'm so happy to explain. So, like I mentioned earlier, I actually came from hotels. So I was the venue coordinator and was so happy when people would have their own, because it takes so much off. So at the end of the day, your venue coordinator is responsible for what the venue is responsible for, and that's all. The venue pays the coordinator, not you. They're not hired by you. They're hired by the venue. So, and let's just give an example. Let's say you're getting married at a barn where they don't, provide catering or bar or anything like that. They're just a barn. Maybe they even have tables and chairs if you're lucky. All that venue coordinator needs to make sure happens that day is that barn is still standing and the tables and chairs get out, if that's included. Nothing else is included in their scope of work for the day. So no one else is in charge of making sure that the photographer has a shot list and a timeline, and that the DJ knows where he's going, and that the transportation, none of those other vendors or aspects of the day are that venue coordinator's job. I will say there are coordinators out there from venues who offer, I don't know if it's the goodness of their heart, they just like doing it, to do a little more, and that's amazing. I love that there's coordinators out there that want to take that extra level and just help their brides and couples out, and I totally get why they do that, but ultimately it's not up to them. So that's like saying, I don't need a coordinator because I have a DJ and he puts together the reception timeline for me. Well, okay, but it's not, he's not worried about the whole scope of the day. He doesn't care about anything that happens before you get to, whatever his responsibilities start. So it's not the same. So when you hire a coordinator, they're responsible for that entire every aspect of that day from top to bottom, start to finish, and not just making sure that one aspect happens. We want the day, full picture as a whole to go the way you want it. And it's almost like a puzzle. So we're in charge of kind of putting that whole puzzle together and making sure it fits. And, not just worried that a venue is doing what they're needing to do, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And as a wedding photographer, I see weddings where there is just the venue coordinator and then there's a hired coordinator or planner that the couple specifically brought in. And there is a big difference. There are a lot of questions that just get funneled to the bride or the wedding party that would have just been taken care of by the coordinator if they had brought someone in specifically. So I can back that up as somebody who's been to both weddings.
Absolutely. And like I love event. I love working with venue coordinators. I get along with them very well. I get because I've been there. So I think that I'm really like purposeful and also not stepping on toes. Like I'm not here to do your job either. Like I don't want to run the venue. I don't want to be in charge of any of that. I just want to work with you to make sure, our goals are the same, right? To make sure that your wedding goes off as smoothly as possible. So like I said, I love working with a venue coordinator. I really try not to, step on toes or do anyone else's job. That's not my goal, but I do want to make sure that, your day as a whole goes how you want it.
Totally. That's so great. So let's move more into Silk and Honey, your event planning, coordinating company.
Yeah.
What is the type of weddings that you serve the most, or like your ideal wedding that you love to help with planning or coordinating? Just describe like that dream day that you would love to help with.
Yeah. So it's less about honestly like the day itself, because we do so many different, like I do a ballroom one weekend, then I do a barn the next weekend, then I'm doing a tent in someone's, backyard the next weekend, and then I'm back at this big ball. You know what I mean? Like we're doing a whole different type array of venues and like even budgets as low as, 30s or 40s up to a couple $100,000 we're working with. So for me, it's less about like what that end product is and more about the people that I'm working with. So like my ideal wedding is to have a couple that trusts me, that like there's nothing better than a couple that like really understands your value and trusts the words that you're saying. And there's nothing worse than the opposite. So like, there's a couple that leaves you thinking like, why did you hire me if I'm going to be telling you, these are my vendors that I recommend and this is what I want you to do. And you kind of do the opposite all the time. So for me, yeah, it's just more so like having a couple that understands the value of a planner or a coordinator, listens to what we're saying. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I'm giving you advice based off of the hundreds of weddings that I've planned and or coordinated and or even attended. You learn a lot as a guest as well. It's so funny. I'm sure you as well when you go to weddings, like just as a guest, you're like, oh my God.
Definitely.
So yeah. So yeah, it's more about that couple for me. So as long as, they're on the same page, they're cool with listening to me and understanding that, I have the knowledge, like you hired me for a reason. So let's use that and, use my knowledge and my experience to, the full extent. And then like those are the best weddings for me and the most fulfilling because I've really made the most impact. I almost like I feel like we're friends by the end of it. I'm sad to hug you goodbye on the end of the night because now we're not talking anymore and I don't like that. So yeah, it's almost like a friendship and a partnership and just the trust that we build and that I'm so invested in your wedding. I want it to be the best ever. I treat them all like they're mine. Like I truly, it's like I spent the money. It's like, it's my wedding. I want it to go so well. So yeah, I think that's my ideal wedding. It's more about like the couple.
I totally see that. And the trust really is a big factor because trusting your vendors to run the day like you want them to is key. Like if you don't trust them, then you're going to be behind the scenes running the day. Like you're going to be over the shoulder of the planner coordinator, making sure they're doing their job, over the shoulder of the photographer, making sure they're taking the pictures that you want. Like you don't want that on your wedding day.
No.
Like you said, you want to drink in your hand the whole time. You just want to sit back, relax, say I do, and then party. Like that's the goal. And you just let your vendors do their jobs.
Exactly. Yep.
That's awesome.
100%. Yeah.
So let's go even more deeper. I know we talked about the difference between like planning and coordinating, but what different services or packages do you offer to couples planning their weddings?
Yeah. So we start with wedding management, which is, like I said, it's about 6 weeks out. That's like our base package that we offer. 6 weeks out, we have at least 2 phone calls, emails. I talk to your vendors, create the timeline, put those details together, and then we roll on the wedding day. We've added a wedding management plus consulting hours package. So that one starts immediately. If you're getting married in 6 months or 2 years, you have unlimited emails with me and then up to 10 hours of planned phone calls for consultation. So think of it as having like kind of an in-between of a wedding planner. We use those hours however you want. So you can get on a phone call and talk about A through Z for an hour, or we can talk 5 hours about just your flowers. Like, I don't care how you use those hours. It's whatever's really helpful for you. So if you feel super comfortable in like your design and your vision for what it's going to look like, but you're not comfortable in, hiring your DJ or your caterer or your photographer and you need help with that, fine, we'll do that for you. It's however you want to use those consultation hours leading up to the wedding. And then, like I said, you have emails. So if, middle of the night, you're thinking of something, you don't know if it works, send me an email and I'll get back to you. So those are our two like wedding management packages with or without consulting. We have a full wedding planning package. So that's, you just want help from A to Z planning, starting right away. Again, no matter when your wedding is, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years from now, it doesn't matter. We do monthly calls. We help you get all your vendors, your venue, all that kind of stuff, secure the date, and we guide you all the way through to the day of. You'll actually have 2 people on the day of if you pick the wedding planning package. And then lastly, we have like a full weekend package. So this is for people who want help from rehearsal dinner through farewell brunch. A lot of people who want like, it's coming more, you're probably seeing it too, just more popular people wanting to create more of like a weekend experience for their guests. There's a lot more than to that than just the wedding day. Like the wedding day is just kind of like a piece to that. Then you have to worry about rehearsal and welcome parties and more transportation and more hotel box and more food and more beverage and all that. So if you really want to make it more of like a wedding weekend experience for your guests, then we have a package to help you with all three of those events in theory: your rehearsal / welcome dinner, your wedding day, and then that farewell brunch. So yeah.
That's awesome. I never heard of that consult add-on to like the wedding management package. Would you say that that's kind of like having a very experienced sounding board for wedding planning?
Exactly. It's exactly that. Because it's like the in-between of full planning. Like we're not going to have scheduled calls every month where I'm telling you what you need to be doing next and what you've done and all that. But it's like you said, exactly, it's a sounding board. But if you're sitting around like, "Oh, I'm not sure if these flowers go well with, the signage that I want or these tablecloths or anything like that." I always say just make notes, like make some notes. You can either send me an email right away or make some notes. And on our next call, you just pound through all of the things you've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks that you're not sure. And I'll give you my, feedback on what I think works best and what doesn't. So yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's having like a soundboard in your back pocket.
That's awesome and would be very helpful, I would think, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite package out of all of those? Like, is there one of those that you love doing the most, just personally?
Yeah, I think like just the more that I can work with my couples, the better. And just not the better that, because I've had amazing, just wedding coordination weddings happen as well. It's just maybe more fulfilling for me personally to be able to work with you from start to finish. It's just fun to like see 2 years worth of work come to life. So when I guess you're like a little more invested when you've been working with, like I said, a couple for 2 years, you become like friends, and then you really more than anything want to make sure that day goes smoothly for them. So I guess either the full planning or the wedding weekend. I mean, wedding weekend is just fun because it's just like it's 3 whole like that's just fun. It's almost like a separate bear. That one's always fun. I think like full planning though is it's just the most fulfilling for me to be able to, like I said, develop a real relationship with my couples, get to see them at least once a month via Zoom or phone call. And we talk about so much more than wedding too, right? Because so much happens in your life in 2 years. I mean, I've had people have babies and move and do all this fun stuff that you're also then a part of, and you just become like a little part of their life for a bit. And it's really cool. So yeah, I like that one.
That's awesome. And I, as a wedding photographer, I'm hired pretty far out as well. So
Yeah.
I also tend to be with couples like through all of those life changes. And I agree, getting to be with them and work with them more before and during the wedding, like getting to do an engagement session and getting to document the whole wedding day for them. Like I love doing that because it is more fulfilling. It's capturing as much of the season and moment for them as possible. So
Yeah,
fully
absolutely.
relate there.
Yeah. I also, just a note, I always recommend that my couples do an engagement photo shoot with their photographer because it just adds, I mean, you could talk about this, I'm sure, forever, but you get to meet them in person and just understand what that chemistry is like. And you're not like meeting a stranger on your wedding day because that's like kind of weird. Someone's going to be with you because you're with them all day. So it's nice to meet the person that's going to be like taking their picture like so intimately all day before that day. So yes, we love an engagement shoot here. I'm always like pushing for that. So
That
yeah.
makes me so happy because I probably will have a solo episode soon about
Yeah.
the importance of an engagement session
You
before
should.
your wedding
Yeah.
because it's again so much more than about the photos.
Yep.
But yeah, that makes me happy. Okay, two more questions for you, and they're bangers.
Okay.
So, first question, why should brides consider hiring a planner or coordinator for their wedding?
Awesome question. I can give you a pretty short answer on this, and it's that I've never had someone tell me that they regret hiring a planner or coordinator, but I have definitely had people tell me they regret not hiring a planner or coordinator. So you're never gonna walk away from your wedding and be like, "Oh, we had too much help." Like that went way too smooth. You know what I mean? Like you're never gonna walk away from that. You're gonna walk away with an awesome, like just thinking of all the memories, and you're gonna think about the food and the people that you got to see that you haven't seen in forever, and the dancing and the fan. Like that's what you're gonna think about. And if you don't hire one, you're gonna run the risk of thinking about all the negative things that went wrong, that shouldn't have went wrong, or that could have been prevented. That you don't like. That's just not the memory that you want to have. So and like I've had weddings where not that I'm like standing around, but there hasn't been like an enormous amount of things for me to do in terms of like setup or stuff like that. And so sometimes people are like, "Oh, well, that was kind of like a waste of money." And it's never a waste of money because at the drop of a dime, if something happens, I'm there. Like you have someone there. It's a safety net. So even if you don't have this like insanely moving parts complicated wedding, I still think and will argue that you can benefit from having a coordinator there because there's something is going to happen. And I tell all my couples that at least one thing is going to go wrong, quote unquote, on your day. It's just going to be a matter of how big of a deal that is, how fast we can fix it. And what it is going to vary on how much we did ahead of time to make sure, you know what I mean? Like how much we troubleshooted ahead of time to make sure that it's not X, Y, and Z. And that maybe it's just, something as little as something super little. So yeah, I said it was going to be a short answer, but like I said, wrapping it all up, I've never had someone tell me that they regret hiring a coordinator, but I've definitely had people say, oh, if I could do one thing over, I would hire someone to be there on the day of to take care of all these little things.
That makes so much sense because we talked about how much you do as a wedding coordinator or planner, like all the little things that you don't think about. Even if somebody's like, I'm type A, I have the time, I can do this, I'm sure of it. Having that safety net, it's like having insurance just in case, because there are so many little things that could, again, go quote unquote wrong, which, at the end of the day, if you're married, like nothing really goes
Yeah.
wrong. It's just
Yeah.
like minor details.
Sure. Yeah.
But those are taken care of by somebody who knows how to take care of them quickly and efficiently, who does not tell you that they're being taken care of, kind of thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And 9 times out of 10, right? Like you can do all those things. I'm not saying that you can't run your wedding day. You absolutely could. If I gave you the time, you know what I mean? If we sat through it and said this is what needs to be done, you could do it. But do you want to be? That's the other thing. Like, do you want to be, or do you want to be making your mom or your sister or and someone like else in charge? Or do you want them to be able to totally relax and enjoy the day? And if, it's the latter, then you got to hire someone because otherwise it's going to be you guys doing it.
That's so true. Yes. And you want to enjoy your wedding day fully.
Yep.
Sweet. Last question is kind of it's a double question. So
Okay.
apologies. But biggest tip for brides planning their wedding as a professional, so as a planner and coordinator, and then personally, since you planned your own wedding and are married.
Okay, so let's go with I have two things here, and they can kind of go with either professionally or personally. The lines are blurred at this point
Yes.
for me. The first one's gonna be a little controversial, but I really am a big proponent of first looks. I just think the timeline of the day, you get to enjoy your cocktail hour. It's just so much better in my experience, depending on what you want. Now, if you come to me, first phone call, hey Keira, we're not doing first look, I won't even mention it again. Like, I'm not gonna push anything on you at all. I'm only gonna give you my advice if you ask for it. But 9 times out of 10, if someone says, what do you think? We're not sure, first look or no, they'll almost always go with that first look because of the pros and cons that you're given there. You know this as well with the timeline. It's just you get all those photos done and you get to enjoy your cocktail hour. You just get to enjoy more of that actual wedding. It goes so fast. So if you're taking that hour of cocktail hour to go take pictures, it it's so much shorter now. Like there's just so much less time to enjoy the time with your guests. And like on a personal level, I had a first look for my wedding and I didn't cry, but I cried walking down the aisle. So like people say that too. They're like, oh, I don't want to lose that element of, him seeing me for the first time, walking down the aisle, all that. And I feel like I'm like firsthand knowledge that it's not still not the same. Like you can still have that feeling and that special moment walking down the aisle, even if you've been with each other in the freezing cold for the last 3 hours taking pictures, like it doesn't matter. You can still recreate that moment. So my first one's going to be first look. My second thing is going to be, and this is just kind of like more general overall advice, plan the wedding that you want for yourself. A lot of people let family members, friends, people who've just got married, like people in their lives, like tell them that they should do things a certain way or that they need to do certain things. The only thing you have to do on that day is sign your marriage license. Like and the officiant has to declare you married. That's the only thing. Everything else is over and beyond what needs to happen on that day. So it should be what you want it to be, and you should be doing things because you want to do them and not because somebody else wants you to. Obviously, if people are, who's contributing to the budget, those things can have a little bit of some play, but I'm a huge like advocate for my couples. I want them to have the day that they want to have for themselves. If you don't want to do a first dance, don't do a first dance. If you don't want to cut the cake, you want to do donuts, you want to not have, don't do it. You don't have to do any of those things. You don't have to have, you want cocktail hour to be 2 hours long? Love it. Let's do it. More hour for bar. I love, like, let's do it. I want you to do what you want to do. There's no cookie cutter set in stone. A wedding has to have A through Z. Like I said, all you have to do is sign that marriage license and the officiant has to pronounce you, and that's it. So I really, it's important to me, and I really try to be an advocate, like I said, for my couples to have the data they want, the elements that they want that are important. That's a conversation we have too. What's important to you? Is the food super important to you, or is it not? Is dancing super important to you? Like everyone has different what's important priorities to them. So we talk about that. And then I help you make sure that those priorities are what we spend most money and most time on. And I think that's just like the best way to go through it too, because I don't want to be looking at a florist that costs $20,000 when flowers aren't important to you. And it's, the food is the most important. So understanding what your priorities are and just making sure you have the wedding that you want for yourself. Big advocate of that.
Those are fantastic pieces of advice. So as a wedding photographer, I can back up the first look. I hear often from couples who do it that it does not take away from the moment of you walking down the aisle, because you're walking down the aisle to the person that's you're going to marry. Like that is still a big moment. Seeing them beforehand doesn't necessarily take away from that. So I can back that up. And then again, with making your wedding day yours, you're going to enjoy it more if it's filled with things that you enjoy. Like if you don't enjoy dancing, then have like lawn games at your reception, like make it something that you're going to enjoy. Make it a day that is going to be filled with memories that you will cherish forever. And what makes those memories memorable for you. Like, the days that you've loved the most. Like, look back at those days. What have you loved most about them? What stood out to you? And then incorporate that in your wedding day with your person.
Yeah. Love that. Exactly.
Love that. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, Keira, thank you so much. It was amazing chatting with you. And it is always amazing working with you. So I can vouch that Keira is awesome and you should totally hire her for your wedding. But yes, thanks for chatting and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.